All right, let's take our Bibles and turn to Psalm 115. Psalm 115. Psalm 115. And verse 16. I'm going to read just one verse for now. The heaven, even the heavens, are the Lord's, but the earth hath He given to the children of men. This is such an important verse to start off. Gives a basic principle here that God, He owns everything. He even owns the earth, but He's given the earth to the children of men and to everyone. So we're supposed to respect each other's God-given rights and live peaceably on this earth. But He's given the earth to the children of men. So it belongs to we the people. The earth, everything. Now, it doesn't belong to government, it belongs to the people. And God wants to be, He gives us free will, but He wants us to trust in Him and to follow His guide, follow His leading, so that on this earth, this wonderful earth He's given us, though it's cursed now somewhat since the sin of Adam and Eve in the garden, so it's not perfect now, but it sure was, and someday it will be returned to that. But in the meantime, God wants us to do the best we can while we're at. So while we're here, but He wants us, without interfering with our free will, He wants us to yield to Him and follow Him. So the earth He's given to the children of man. There is no government. Doesn't say He gave it to government. Didn't say He gave it to kings. Didn't say He gave it to presidents. It doesn't say He gave it to prime ministers. He gave it to the children of men. God had in mind the posterity of people, not institutions of people. That's very important. So I'm going to talk tonight on this subject, one more in the series. We hold these truths, and that's the truth that's expressed in the Declaration of Independence, which says that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, but the children own everything. The children of man own the earth. It belongs to them. God's given it to us. But if they want to, they can form a government. And so we've got certain unalienable rights that we get from God, our Creator, and that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. So without the consent of the governed, governments have no powers, no just powers. If they exercise power, it's unjust. And injustice will proceed from that. So then it says that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. And it's talking about the safety and happiness of the people, not the safety and happiness of government or government employees. So, the Arizona Constitution states that all political power is inherent in the people. And that is a brilliant statement. And that's basically the theme of what I'm going to be preaching on tonight. Now, let me show you from the Bible principles that lead to that. When God called Abraham out of Ur of the Chaldees, He said, I will make of thee a great nation. And then He led Abraham, showed him all the land that He was going to give, and God is going to take away land, because God gives to the children of men. What God gives, He can take away, because everything belongs to God. And if you don't use what God gives you, God will take it away. If you don't use it right, God is the judge of all nations, of all people. He sets up kingdoms and He puts them down. And so the people that were in the lands at the time, the land of Canaan, were living wickedly. They're pursuing false gods, and they were not serving God. And God says, okay, judgment's coming. I'm going to drive you out and give the land to somebody else. And those were the descendants of Abraham, particularly through the lineage of Isaac and Jacob. And so, and particularly Jacob, the 12 sons of Jacob. So now, so God did that, and then of course, time came by, and they ended up, through a famine, had to go to Egypt, and then God brought them through, He raised Moses up to bring them out of Egypt and led them back into that land that He had promised many years ago. Now, they go through the period of the judges, and now they have Samuel as their judge. So let's go to 1 Samuel chapter 8. 1 Samuel chapter 8, and look at that real quick. 1 Samuel chapter 8, I'm going to read a little bit of a story here, give you the background of how governments are instituted. All government is instituted by people. 1 Samuel chapter 8, verse 1, And it came to pass when Samuel was old that he made his sons judges over Israel. Now the name of his firstborn was Joel, and the name of his second Abiah, and they were judges in Beersheba. And his sons walked not in his ways, but turned aside after lucre, that's money, and took bribes and perverted judgment. Then all the elders of Israel gathered themselves together and came to Samuel unto Ramah and said unto him, Behold, thou art old, and thy sons walk not in thy ways. Now make us a king to judge us like all the nations. Boy, that's a terrible thing. When God sets up a people to be a nation, to be a light to the rest of the world, example of the rest of the world, He doesn't want that nation to be like all the other nations. He wants them to be different. And God brought them out and hoping they would follow Him and follow the prophets and the judges that He set up. Like Samuel was anointed judge by God, chosen by God to lead the people of Israel. Moses was chosen and called by God to lead the children of Israel. Abraham was called to lead his people, and God was going to make a new nation out of him. Through him. God does not want people that represent Him to go and be like everybody else. That's why Christians are not supposed to be like the world. We're supposed to separate ourselves and not be like them, not follow their ways. But here they come to Him and say, Look, make us a king like all the nations. Verse 6, But the thing displeased Samuel when they said, Give us a king to judge us. And Samuel prayed unto the Lord. And the Lord said unto Samuel, Hearken unto the voice of the people and all that they say unto thee. For they have not rejected thee, but they have rejected me, that I should not reign over them. According to all the works which they have done since the day that I brought them up out of Egypt, even unto this day, wherewith they have forsaken me and served other gods, so do they also unto thee. Now therefore, so God has a good, He says, I got every right to complain. But they're not rejecting you, they're rejecting me. I've seen it. It's been a pattern year after year after year after year for hundreds of years. Now therefore hearken unto their voice. And see, that's evidence that God will listen to people and give them what they want. If you want evil, God will let you have it. God's a God of freedom and liberty, and He gave us free will. He doesn't want to interfere with that free will as far as with force. But He'll try to influence, He'll try to persuade, and He'll try to protest and warn us. And He'll tell us what's an abomination, and that's abomination comes from the root word omen, which is a warning to stay away. But if you go towards that which He says stay away, you're going to get into big trouble because you're going to be doing things that God hates. And I taught on abomination what that means a few weeks ago on a Wednesday night. So God will warn us. But so here He says to Samuel, Look, hearken unto the voice of the people and all that they say unto thee, for they have not rejected thee. So, now verse 90 says, Hearken unto their voice, howbeit, yet protest solemnly unto them. God tells a man of God to protest. And man, I'm so sick and tired of preachers who aren't willing to protest. What's going on in this world that's wicked, what's going on in the halls of government that's wicked, what's going on in the constitutional republic, in city halls, in state capitals, and in the U.S. Capitol, and in our courtrooms. It's time preachers start protesting. God told Samuel, protest solemnly. He didn't say, get mad, and I'm upset because preachers aren't doing what they ought to do. Samuel's willing to do what God, so God didn't have to yell at him, but there's a bunch of preachers that are lazy and scaredy cats and they won't protest. And that's why I'm upset about today. Our nation's going downhill because preachers have been going downhill. Preachers haven't been doing what God told Samuel to do, protest solemnly. If you protest solemnly on a regular basis, you don't have to get mad. You don't have to get quite as mad anyway. So, he said, Yet protest solemnly unto them, and show them the manner of the king that shall reign over them. And Samuel told all the words of the Lord unto the people that asked of him a king. And he said, boy, this is good. This will be the manner of the king that shall reign over you. By the way, the people are asking for it. So here's proof. All political power is inherent in the people. And God has given the earth to the children of men, and they can do what they want. God will protest solemnly. He'll tell them, look, this is what you ought to do. But if they don't want to do it, He's going to let them do what they want to do. Does God want them to have a king? No, He does not want them to have a king. He wants to be the one to rule over them, but He wants them to accept His leadership and follow Him willfully, not by force. And since they won't, He says, okay, you want a king? You can have a king. But I'm going to warn you ahead of time. Here's what it's going to be like. This will be the manner of the king that shall reign over you. He will take your sons and appoint them for Himself, for His chariots, and to be His horsemen, and some shall run before His chariots. And He will appoint him captains over thousands and captains over 50s, and will set them to ear His ground. Wait a minute, where do those thousands come from? The people. He's going to organize the people and have captains set up over them. So these people are now subject to somebody who's subject to the king. So the people are going to lose their sovereignty when they choose a king. The sovereignty they shouldn't lose, but they're going to willfully give it up. They're going to waive their rights to sovereignty through their own selfishness. And He'll set them to ear His ground, in others to plant corn, and to reap His harvest, and to make His instruments of war, and instruments of His chariots. Notice how many times His shows up here. And He will take your daughters to be confectionaries, and to be cooks, and to be bakers. And He will take your fields and your vineyards and your olive yards, even the best of them, and give them to His servants. And He will take the tenth of your seed through taxation, and of your vineyards, and give to His officers and to His servants. And He will take your men servants and your maid servants and your goodliest young men and your asses and put them to His work. He will take the tenth of your sheep, and ye shall be His servants. Now, did the people have anybody to whom they had to serve before now? Just the Lord. Samuel said earlier, only fear the Lord and serve Him in truth with all your heart. For consider how great things He hath done for you. Now they're moving from that to now they're going to serve a king who's going to take their sons and their daughters and all their belongings and tax them because they want a king. Oh, be careful what you want. God will let you have it. Verse 18, and ye shall cry out in that day because of your king which He shall have chosen you. You're going to wish you hadn't done it, in other words. And the Lord will not hear you in that day. Nevertheless, so notice Samuel tells the people all that, but nevertheless the people refused to obey the voice of Samuel, and they said, nay, no, that's not going to happen. Nay, but we will have a king over us. Why? They're enamored with what they saw on television, on foreign channels. Obviously they didn't have television, but you get the analogy. They like the pomp and circumstance that they saw with these kings and these, what do you call it, in the Arab world? Sheiks, yeah, the sheiks and so forth. All the faldera, all the fancy, oh wow, boy, look at that robe, look at that long, what do you call it, people that follow? Look at that long entourage, look at their uniforms, look at their clothing. Oh wow, that's beautiful. Yeah, but they don't know about all the people that are in bondage and paying taxes to support his rich, all those rings on his fingers and the fancy buildings he has and all his harems and all that. They don't get that. And they said, no, we will have a king over us, that we also may be like all the nations. Wait a minute, we're supposed to be different. We're supposed to be separate. We're supposed to be an example to those nations, but now they're wanting what those nations are. How sad. And that our king may judge us and go up before us and fight our battles. And Samuel heard all, wait a minute, who went out before them before? The Lord did. The Lord drove out their enemies, and that's not good enough. Now they want a king to go out like these other nations. Boy, people can really be stupid, can't they? The devil is a liar. He's an enticer. He's a deceiver. He's a deceiver of the nations, and he just deceived God's people. And Samuel heard all the words of the people, and he rehearsed them in the ears of the Lord. Wow, rehearse. Rehear. And the Lord said to Samuel, hearken unto their voice. Can you imagine how hard it was for God to do that? But God, in His justice, He will not rule over people that do not want Him to rule. God is a leader. he's not a dictator. He has the ability to dictate, and on Judgment Day he certainly will, but he would rather be a leader. He'd rather be a shepherd. He'd rather sheep follow him than be a cattle driver. The devil's a cattle driver. He uses deceit to make you think he's a sheep herder, but he's a cattle driver. But anyway, so the Lord said to Samuel, hearken to their voice, and make them a king. And Samuel said unto the men of Israel, go ye every man unto his city. How sad. So they choose Saul to be their first king. By the way, they let God pick out Saul. So they start off good. God gets to pick the first king. They let God do that, and through lots, and we won't go into all that story, but Saul becomes the first king. Now let's go to 1 Samuel chapter 14. Let's see how that turned out. 1 Samuel chapter 14. I don't have time to tell all the stories. I'll just tell you, Saul started off very humble, good man, godly man, and God arranged for him to meet Samuel, and Samuel shared with him the Word of God, and Samuel taught him the Word of God. Saul put his faith in the Lord, in the promise of the Messiah, and trusted the Lord as his Savior, and followed the Lord, and was a godly man for a while, and a great leader, by the way, until he got the big head. Power went to his head, and there's a statement that someone has made years ago, I don't know who, but it's a great statement. When in the realms of men, absolute power corrupts. And kings have absolute power when the people have turned over their power and given it to him. Absolute power corrupts, and power corrupts absolutely. Something like that. So Saul really got corrupted. He got the big head, got proud, and then it absolutely corrupted him where he was doing really stupid stuff. And we're going to show you one of those stupid things. Turn to chapter 14. And I think in previous chapter, I think chapter 13 maybe, I'm not sure where, I'm going to pick up in the middle of the story, but they're in a battle with the Philistines. And Saul's been doing good, but now he says, all right, let's go to battle. He says, I want to win this thing, and therefore nobody eat anything until we win this battle. Now, should a leader motivate his followers? Does a king not have a right to say, all right, let's go get him, man, let's go get him? But it's foolish when he has power, that power gets corrupted, and he gives foolish edicts and commands like, nobody eat. Wait a minute, how are you going to have energy after a while? What if it's a long battle? What if it goes all day and you're worn out and you're famished and you have no energy? You need energy. But, Saul gave a command, nobody eat. That's a stupid command. Why? By a man whose wisdom has been corrupted and his goodness has been corrupted, and now I got power, I'm going to tell people, no eating. That's a stupid rule. A lot of times that happens. People start off good and then they start making dumb rules, trying to control the people too much. Man, if a guy's hungry, he ought to be able to eat, even if he's fighting. So what if he takes a break? If he goes back and has strength and fights better, that's better than him getting famished and weak and then getting killed. I mean, come on. Anybody with any sense, military sense, knows you got to take good care of your soldiers. So here's the story. Jonathan, his son, by the way, was a valiant man, had been off fighting, or been off something. There's another story there I won't go into, but he does not hear that command. He doesn't even know about that. He didn't know his father's giving out some idiotic command for nobody to eat. And Jonathan's been fighting all day, and he's somewhere else, and he gets faint, and he comes across some honey in a tree. He dips his rod, he was faint and tired, and he dipped his rod into that honey, and and he got energy. He was enlightened, and all of a sudden he was rejuvenated. Boy, he went on and fought a great battle and delivered the Philistines into the hands of Israel. God used Jonathan, his armor bearer, in a great victory. And then Saul hears that somebody ate. Word gets around that Jonathan ate some honey. Except somehow word got around that somebody ate some honey. I don't think they knew it was Jonathan. But anyway, look at verse 43. We'll start there. So, let's start with verse 41. Let's back up even more. Saul said, verse 38, and Saul said, draw ye near hither, all the chief of the people, and know and see where in this sin, he's heard that someone has violated his order, his edict, says, let's draw near and see wherein this sin hath been this day. For as the Lord liveth, which saveth Israel, see, he's spiritual, but he's also corrupted. You've got to watch out for preachers who preach good stuff, but they got corruption in there. We've got to be careful. That's why you need to search the Scripture daily, see if those things are so that a preacher preaches. But anyway, he says, though it be in Jonathan my son, he shall surely die. But there is not a man among all the people that answered him. Some of the people knew, I think, and they didn't want to say. Why? They're starting to realize that was stupid. That was dumb. Now he's willing to kill his own son. That's stupid. So they're saying nothing, but they're thinking, see? A lot of times Americans, and by the way, government officials better be wary. They better get right with God and start following their oath of office. Because there's a lot of people that are quiet right now. They don't know what to do, but they're thinking and they're knowing there's something wrong in this country. And they're not going to put up with garbage much longer. So you better watch out for that quiet before the storm. And so they didn't answer him. Then said he unto all Israel, be ye on one side, and I and Jonathan my son will be on the other side. And the people said unto Saul, do what seemeth good unto thee. They're giving him some rope. And therefore Saul said unto the Lord God of Israel, he prays and says to the Lord, give a perfect lot. In other words, bless us as we draw straws, so to speak, cast lots. And Saul and Jonathan were taken, but the people escaped. So they're trying to draw straws between three. Either me or Jonathan or one of you people has violated my order. And so the first lot that was cast is Jonathan and Saul. And so, verse 42, and Saul said, cast lots between me and Jonathan. Don't you think Saul already knows where he's going? He knows he hadn't eaten. Or maybe he snuck something and didn't tell anybody. And he's thinking, God's surely not going to expose me. That's very possible. I wouldn't put it past him. Anyway, therefore Saul said to the Lord God of Israel, Saul said, verse 42, cast lots between me and Jonathan my son, and Jonathan was taken. In other words, he got the short end of the stick. Then Saul said to Jonathan, tell me what thou hast done. And Jonathan told him and said, I did but taste a little honey with the end of the rod that was in mine hand, and lo, I must die. And Saul answered, God do so and more also, for thou shalt surely die, Jonathan. And look at verse 45, so important. And the people to whom the children of man, to whom God gave the earth, people who asked for a king, people who formed governments, the people said unto Saul, shall Jonathan die, which hath wrought this great salvation in Israel? God forbid! As the Lord liveth, there shall not one hair of his head fall to the ground. For he hath wrought with God this day. So the people rescued Jonathan that he died not. So who's more powerful, the king or the people? The people. And it's time for the people of America to stand up. People around the world too, but I'm talking about America. I'm concerned about what's going wrong in our country. It's time the people stand up and say, not one hair of his head is going to fall. Not one thing, you're not putting him in jail. Man, I tell you one thing. Well, I don't want to say too much right now, but if government ever tries to throw in jail somebody that I know is innocent, and I know that they're lying and trying to get him in jail, and if I'm around, it ain't going to happen. I'll die keeping them out. It ain't going to happen. I'm saying, God forbid, and I'm going to trust in God to give me the wisdom to corral people and say, no way! And that's what people need to learn, that we have power of citizen arrest. If some government official is going to abuse somebody, we need to learn how to arrest people and get the people behind us and stop the nonsense. All right? Now we've been so pacifistic. I'm going to sound like a radical here, but this is the way our founding fathers were. This is the way the people of Israel were. This is the way the people throughout the Bible. There are many stories I could show you, but I won't because of time. I got to hurry up now. So here is proof that the people have the power to stop anything. They can stop a king. They can stop a president. They can stop a mayor. Did you hear about the people that arrested the whole city council? in I think it's California. They got rid of them all. And then a park board, it's on our website, 2 men arrested the whole park board, district park board. One of the guys was voted against what they were, so they let him go, but 6 men are under arrest right now in Illinois because 2 men stood up with the rights they have under God, and the government's supposed to be submissive to the people. So I want to really drill this home tonight, because there are a bunch of preachers that think, oh, we're supposed to be submissive to all the higher powers. That's exactly right. We are supposed to submit to higher. It says you don't know what the higher powers are. Which is the higher power, God the creator or man the creature? Which is the higher power? The people, the creators of government, or the government that's the created? The logic continues. If God is sovereign over the people whom He created, the people are sovereign over the government they created. It's just common sense. But we've been brainwashed because government has gotten abusive and gotten hungry for more power and more power and more money to where they try to control us. So, now, let me just remind you, the Declaration of Independence says that governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. And we, the people, are the ones who ordained and established the Constitution. The states did not establish the Constitution. We, the people, did. The state governments didn't. The legislators did not. We, the people, did. And so, I'm going to read to you from the Constitution now. I read from the Declaration of Independence. Now we're going to go to the Constitution. The preamble, I just said, but I'll read it again. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, and then we have the right to do so according to the Declaration of Independence, establish justice. That's the number one purpose of government, is establish justice. Ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, provide for the general welfare, not specific welfare, but the general welfare, provide an atmosphere of liberty and freedom so that people can pursue happiness, and pursue those things that will lead to happiness, which is hard work, trust in God, and putting your mind to use and your body to use to where you can make things and then sell them. Or mine things and then sell the ore. Or farm things and sell that. Or raise cattle and sell that. Or fish for fish and sell that. Or hunt and sell that. But you can do with your power and your brawn, your might and your brain and your brawn, whatever God leads you or what God calls you to do. That's what vocation is. People used to have vocations. Now we got jobs. And now that we got jobs instead of vocations, people lost sight of the fact that a vocation is a calling from God. Well, I want to go and do that, but I don't have time. But Genesis chapter 4 is a good book, or a good chapter. And God raised up people who became artificers in iron and brass and so forth. God gives people callings and urges and desires to do this. There's people that love to farm. There's people that hate to farm, but they love to hunt. There's people that love to fish, but hate to hunting. God puts desires in all kinds of people, and He's given us a rich land. We need to be free to do what we ought to do and only punish those who abuse the rights of others. So, and that's what government's for, so we can go about our business. Let government do the judgment. But they're supposed to do it within the powers and limitations that we have set up. Now, so they ordained, they said, to promote the general welfare and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. So we the people do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. So it's by we the people, not the states, not by any legislative body, it's by the people. Now, Article 1, Section 1 says all legislative power in the federal government, this is what it means, all legislative powers herein, in other words, in the Constitution, granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and a House of Representatives. If there's power, all the powers herein which are listed, sections 1 through 10 of Article 1 covers Article 1 covers the legislative branch. And Article 1, Section 1 describes that all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in the Congress. So there's only 10 articles in Section 1. And whatever legislative powers are in Section 1, they're granted by we the people, because we the people have the power. And then we grant certain listed, enumerated powers through Section 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution. We grant those and those only, those powers only, and we vest them in a Congress. So we are the grantors, we are the vestors, and government is the grantee and the vestees. Now, so that's how we set up the legislative branch. It's under the people are the higher power. Let's go to Section 2. And let's see what that says. Article 2. That's where they set up the executive branch. The executive power shall be vested, that means there has to be a vestor, shall be vested in a president of the United States of America. So the president is the vestee. And we, the people, are the vestors. We're the ones that grant that power. We're the ones that give the president the power. He has no power except that which we give him, and only that power which is listed here in Article 2, Sections 1 through 4. That's it. He's got less power than the legislative body. Why? The legislative body writes the laws. They got to do all the research and make sure we do laws that don't violate the rights of the people. And that takes more work. All the president has to do is make sure they're enforced at the national level. Meaning the laws that the legislative branch of the national level write. The president's job is not to enforce lying and stealing and so forth. His job is to enforce the constitutional, the abridgments of the Constitution. All right, then Article 3, Section 1 says, the judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court and in such inferior courts as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. So we the people vest power, we're the vestors, we vest power in one Supreme Court and also in such inferior courts that the Congress, so here's a check and balance, we let Congress, we the people ordained the Supreme Court, but we the people gave power to the legislative branch to set up from time to time, if necessary, if needed, inferior courts to the Supreme Court. And Section 3, Article 3 only has 3 sections. So Article 1, the legislative, has 10 sections. Article 2 has 4. Article 3 has 3. Now, how are judges chosen? How is the president chosen? How are the legislative members chosen? The people have more control over the legislature than the other 2 branches, though they have control over both to some degree. But they have closer control. So where the most power is vested, those people are closer to those individuals are closer to the people themselves. Why? Because the peoples are the grantors of the power. So our public servants need to realize that they are our servants, and we, the people, need to learn that we are their masters. And we need to learn how to, a master, a guy who has a boss and has a business, and then just lets the workers do whatever they want. Oh boy, they're going to turn his business into a big problem. He's going to have big problems. And that's what we got right now. We got right now a big problem where now the servants are lording it over the masters. And that ought not be. Now, let me just say a few things, and I'm not going to be much longer, I don't think. But the Arizona Constitution, Article 2, Section 2 says all political power is inherent in the power. Inherent means we inherit it. Why? Because God gave the earth to the children of men. It's for their posterity. And by the way, the preamble, remember, it says to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. That posterity is people who come after, either because they're born of people who are citizens, or they're people from other country who, through the naturalization process and citizenship process that we have, that we delegated Congress to do, they can become a citizen of the United States and have children born, and those children become the posterity also of those who founded the nation. And so, so all political power is inherent in the people, not in government. And governments derive their just powers from the consent of the government. And then Article 2, Section 2 of the Arizona Constitution says that governments are established to maintain and protect individual rights. That's what it's for. That's what it's all about. And now, there's another power that we the people have that's not, it's only referenced, but we don't grant anything. It's assumed because it's one of those powers. Well, I'll tell you, let me read a couple of the things from the Constitution. After a while, people realized during the process to ratify the Constitution, they realized, oh boy, there's nothing in there to protect us. We're creating a government. And so they demanded that some amendments be made, but the ratification process was already started, and so they couldn't, they had to either ratify it or not, and they persuaded some people the people were persuaded to vote for it in spite of the lack of a Declaration of Rights of the people, but on the promise that more would be added. And so I'm going to read to you some of those amendments. And they were passed the first year that Congress, they took this on, and it was some of the first business Congress dealt with was these amendments. Article 1, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or, that's number one, no government religion, no state religion can establish that, or prohibit. So Congress can make no law that would prohibit the free exercise thereof. In other words, of any religion. So that means we can exercise our religion, and Congress can't make any law against our exercise of religion. All right? Then it has some other things, and I'm not going to spend as much time as I like to on that because I want to get to something else. Or the freedom of speech, or the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Notice Congress can make no law saying you cannot petition, you cannot file any papers asking for a redress of a grievance that you have. If the government treats you wrong, you have a right to petition the government, say, hey, look at what someone in government did to me, and I want this redressed. I want someone to look at this again. Redress means to go back and work on something, like to dress the garden means to work the garden. Go back and work on something that was not done, that was right, that was wrong. Some injustice was done, and a redress of grievances when you're grieved because government is not protecting your rights but trampling your rights, and you have the right to petition that government to redress or go back and work on that issue. And that's a right, and Congress can make no law. And by the way, Congress is the only body that can make laws. Judges cannot make laws. Presidents cannot make laws. Let me say right now, Kent Hovind is being charged right now with mail fraud because he mailed some paperwork in his case to appeal some things and to protect, or at least to warn people who had bought property the government wrongly took, that government stole from him in his ministry. He just sent a letter called a Liz Pennis to warn potential buyers that, hey, this property is up. I'm not doing my appeal process, and I just want to let you know, you can buy it if you want to, but a Liz Pennis means you have a right to let people know that there's a cloud on that title of that land. And some people won't want to do that if there's no clear title. And so, in fact, they have a right to know that. And that's what he did. But because he did it from prison, this judge, this wicked, evil judge, who has no power to legislate, is the one who is pushing the charges against Kent. There's nobody that Kent sent that letter to says, oh, he shouldn't have sent me that letter. I want to know the judge is charging Kent Hovind has pushed it. And the Justice Department going after him. Why? Well, I'm not getting all the reasons why. It's very clear to me. But I'm just saying that judge is out of control. That judge is wrong. She's exercising powers not delegated to her, not vested in her. And it's evil, it's wrong. She's trampling the rights of a person to file paperwork. And I'm not getting all the other injustice, like the fact that they held back his paperwork after his first trial, to where when he filed it was already past the deadline. And they said, nope, too late. When they held back the papers from him, moving him from prison to prison, and so forth. They have been treating that man unjustly, and we're getting sick and tired of it. That's why I'm preaching this sermon, because I want to fire up people all over this country. Let's stop the evil in government. Let's stop the corruption. Let's hold people accountable who have taken an oath to defend the rights of the people. That judge took an oath to defend Kent Hovind's rights, not to abuse them. Not because she doesn't like him because he's a Christian. Not because she thinks that he did some things wrong when he didn't, just because she thinks, well, everybody ought to pay tax. It's not about taxation. It's about her. Someone, I think, is giving her orders, but we're going to get to the bottom of it, and we're going to pursue because his rights are being violated. And I'm just preaching this message that the power belongs to the people. It doesn't belong to the government. They're supposed to exercise only certain enumerated powers, and not supposed to go beyond that. She's gone beyond. And many other people, by the way. Scott Schneider is sitting at the prosecuting table in a court, and he has no business being there. And I'm not going to get into all that, but I'll just say that much. I'm sick and tired of government violating the rights of the people, and I'm calling them out. All right, so another thing. Let's look at another. Amendment number 2. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now I tell you, I was watching a video last night. A police officer detaining somebody because they're walking down the street because somebody calls it, oh, there's people with a gun, there's people with a gun. Well, so what? There wasn't any when everybody had a gun. And so the police officer came and said, hey, I'm on your side. I'm all for the Second Amendment, but I need some ID. I need to know whether you're a felon and whether you have a right to carry that gun or not. And the guy wouldn't say anything except that I have no ID. Well, what do you mean I have no idea? How am I going to identify you and tell whether you have a right to carry it? He has a right to carry it unless you know he's a felon. Look, it's so stupid. We have a government that's set up. It's supposed to. We got away from the King of England. Why? Because the king would say, you're guilty, and we had to prove our innocence. So we set up a different kind of government where we're considered innocent until somebody else can prove we're guilty. This police officer was acting just like this, I think it's Houston Police Department. Houston police officer was acting just like the king in Parliament of England and counting that man as possibly guilty of being a felon and carrying a gun when they didn't even know. He had no probable cause. That cop ought to be fired because he mistreated and he handcuffed that man and put him in his cop car for a long time. Eventually, he got hold of the DA's office. Somebody in the DA's office said, you got to let that man go. See? And he kept saying, hey, I'm on your side. No, you're not. If you don't protect the rights of the people and you count them as possibly guilty and you detain them when you don't have no proof, you're the one that's guilty. And they ought to be fired and never allowed to be in law enforcement again. Get a real job. Get an honest job. Dig some ditches. And learn how to respect hard work and the rights of the people. All right, anyway, I got a lot more I could say, but I don't, because I'm going to cover other territories. Now let's go to Amendment 9. The Ninth Amendment. Listen to this. The enumeration, that means the numbering out, and that's why you have Articles 1 through 7, and you got section numbers within several of those articles. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. We got more rights than just the rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. We got the rights to move around. I got a right to walk over here if I want to, or walk over there as long as nobody's occupying that space or has a sign fence that says, and owns it, says no trespassing. In public property, on public property, or property not claimed by anyone, we have the right to move about freely. And by whatever mode we want. You can walk, ride a bike, walk on stilts, walk on your hands, ride a tricycle, or a horse, or a goat, or a donkey, or a burro, or your brother's back, or even a motor, a gasoline-powered motor that'll carry you further so you don't get tired and don't have to feed a horse. You can buy gas and put it in a car instead. You can travel in your private automobile, should be able to travel anywhere in the United States. No borders of the states should be any hindrance to you. Why? Because we are both citizens of the state in which we were born or live, and also citizens of the United States, and that we, the people, ordained it, and we're the citizens that control it. We're the masters. And masters have a right to go wherever they want to go amongst their servants. You can go from this department, you can go from the cashier department to the payroll department. You can go to the maintenance department. You can go to the research and development department. The boss can go wherever he wants to, doesn't need permission. And we got so messed up in this country now, everybody has to get a driver's license. But everybody's not a driver. Now, we may use that term loosely, but the legal or lawful definition of driver, according to, what is that law dictionary, that 1856 one. Man, I know it well. I just, when I preach, I forget things. What? Bouvier's law dictionary. A driver is somebody, and by the way, that law dictionary is better than Black's because it was written at the time and for the purpose of establishing definitions for American terms instead of British, English, and so forth. But anyway, and for our American form of government, our constitutional republic. But anyway, a driver is somebody who hauls people or cargo for a fee. And they use the public roads to make money. Now, public roads belong to the people. That means we have the right to travel on those roads. I've looked up every single highway act that I could find on the internet and downloaded it and copied and pasted into a word processor. I've got all the acts, the first road act and highway act. I forget what the year is now off the top of my head, but I've got them all. And I've copied and pasted, I've studied and I've read them all, in at least all the first ones anyway. I saw over and over the people demanded they have a right to use the roads too, even though they decide, even when they did the interstate system. So they could, after World War II, Dwight Eisenhower came back from the European conflict and World War II, and he said, boy, if we had got attacked in California, how are we going to get our military from in the East Coast over there to help fight? Man, we get all these country roads and winding. It'd take forever. So they said, for the defense of the nation, we need to have an interstate system so we can get, farmers could use it to get from state to state and send their stuff farm. So a twofold purpose is to get, but mainly for defense, but that the people would always have the right to use those roads. Because it's our land. I remember in grade school being taught the song, this land is my land, this land is your land, not the government's. From California to the New York Harbor, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters, this land was made for you and me by God Almighty, and God has given the earth to the children of men. And all political power is inerrant in the people. We have the right to travel and move about. Don't need a license unless you're going to use what belongs to the people for your personal gain. You're going to use the roads you're going to carry loads and wear out the roads and create potholes that the people have to fix. So they said, okay, people that use the roads for their own personal gain and I'm not talking to go to work. I'm talking about where you get paid by the mile or whatever to haul people like taxi drivers or buses, and so forth, or cargo like truck companies and couriers and so forth and mail. Those people have to have a license. You don't have a right to use our property to make money off without our permission. So we created a license system for that. But what the government wanted, they wanted more money, and so they began to say, well, people sometimes have accidents, so they used, we got to have some system where we regulate and control who. There was a day, I remember 8-year-old boys, seeing 8-year-old boys driving combine tractors on their farms. It's not hard. By the way, we got a lot of people that drive that don't bother to get licenses now either. People come into this country and they drive. And yeah, they cause accidents, but guess what? Accidents happen. We're human beings. It's going to happen. But you don't make laws restrict the rights of the people for the sake of security. Those who give up liberty for security deserve neither. Government is supposed to protect the rights of the people, not regulate the people because, you're not smart enough, you might have an accident. Well, accidents happen. Look at all the people that have licenses that get in accidents. What are you going to do about that? Well, let's have a double-tier layer of licensing. It doesn't work. It doesn't solve the problem. And it creates a problem, and it creates a gargantuan government system that now controls the people. And now you go in the bank, need a driver's license for identification. What's that got to do with it? What does the fact that I may make money on the roads by hauling people or cargo, what's that got to do with me needing identification? All you need is somebody to vouch for you. Hey, he's so-and-so. He's who he says he is. That's all we need. We need to get back to common sense instead of government regulation. But anyway, so the rights that are let me read that section 9 again. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights, just because some are mentioned in the Bill of Rights, shall, and this is near the end of this is 9 of the first 10, the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights, meaning in the previous 8 amendments, shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. In other words, we retain all of our powers. We may grant some, but we retain all of our powers because power is inerrant. All political power, not some, all political power is inherent in the people. Then Article 10 says, the powers not delegated to the United States by this Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. So it's very clear that all political power is inherent in the people, and it starts and ends with us. And now let me just say one more thing I want to cover, I think. There is a power that we the people have that's not enumerated in the Constitution. That's referenced, but there's no government authority placed over the people at all for any. And by the way, the authority in the Constitution is over government that we set up. It's not over the people. The Constitution is for the United States of America. It's not for the people. Now, there are certain things, because we set up that, for example, we set up congressmen, so for them to do their job, you're prohibited from arresting a congressman when he's on his way to Congress or on his way home from Congress. But hey, after he gets home, if he's done wrong, you got the right to arrest him. But people, because they see that, say, oh, we can't touch them. Oh, yes, we can. And we need to start arresting some of them because some are violating our rights left and right and voting for things that violate our rights. And when they get home, they need to be arrested. We, the people, have got to take back the power. We have the power. We just got to start exercising again. We got to get those muscles working again. They're dead from atrophy. They're not using them. We need to start using it. And I'm fired up about it because I'm seeing how they're abusing Kent Hovind. And my life is going to be consumed just about with Kent Hovind because if today, Kent Hovind, tomorrow, you and me. And that should have been said about other people a long time ago, but we've been asleep. But I'm awake, and I'm sorry it's taken me so long, but I'm going to wake up as many people as I can. So, what am I getting at? There's another power that we the people have. It's not been mentioned, and that is when you go to court. If someone is charged by governments, they're supposed to represent us, protect our rights, and if someone has violated our rights, but there's a lot of people go to court, they've not violated anybody's rights, they've just violated some statute the government has made. And violate the violation of that statute, well, by the way, you can't violate a statute that shouldn't be, because any law that is repugnant to the Constitution is null and void. It should be treated as if it never were a law, so you can't violate something that shouldn't even be in existence. All right? So, but anyway, just because someone transgresses, walks across the line that some government has created, some legislature and ignorance has created, and no one is harmed, nobody's person is damaged, nobody's property is damaged, and nobody's rights are infringed on, governments are now getting where they're protecting themselves. But that's not the purpose of government. The purpose of government is to protect the rights, maintain, Article 2, Section 2 of the Arizona Constitution, the purpose of governments are established to protect and maintain individual rights, not government rights. Governments have no rights. They have responsibilities. They are servants. And some dumb clucks and a bunch of Arizonans were asleep, and they passed an amendment to the Arizona Constitution that says that municipal corporations have the right to engage in industrial pursuits. Municipal corporations, number one, they shouldn't even be incorporated. That's a big mistake. Should be a government of the people, by the people, not incorporated. But anyway, but no, they have no rights. They don't have any rights to industrial pursuits. The people are supposed to be industrious people. And now government's in business, and they're competing using our tax dollars, and people can't compete because they don't have that. They can't tax everybody like the government does. And the government shouldn't. But anyway, it's creating a bad situation here in Arizona. And that amendment needs to be abolished. That was amended to our Constitution. It wasn't in the original Constitution. That needs to be abolished. That needs to be gotten rid of. Our legislators need to do that, or we the people through petition and a constitutional amendment need to get rid of that and repeal that amendment. But anyway, but there's something more serious. That's when someone gets charged with something, they go to court. And now our government has gotten so big, now the courts are being controlled. They're very, very controlled. You got to go through security. You can't go into court armed. Why not? They got officers there that are armed. Why can't they defend themselves if they need to? Oh, we can't trust the people. Look, I don't trust government with arms anymore. I won't go to court. I will not go to court unless I'm allowed to carry my gun in when they have one. And my friends can carry one too. So if they violate my rights in court and use their power and abuse their power, we can do something about it. And they'll know that they better not. Me and my friends, we ain't going to stand for it. That's the way it ought to be. I remember, you ever watched Westerns? They have cowboys on trial. They got their guns on. Now sometimes if someone's real, like a real notorious murderer, well then that's different. Why? He's accused of capital crime. You have a right to hold and keep unarmed someone who's accused of a capital crime. That's in the Bill of Rights too. But unless it's capital crime, you don't lose any rights. You don't give up any rights. So just like I won't fly in a plane because I'm not going to give up my right to carry a gun on a plane, I'm not going to fly on a plane. I'm not going to go anywhere that I have to give up my rights. If I can help it, I do my best not to. I don't shop at stores that have those signs, no weapons allowed. I just don't do that. Why? I don't like when people try to restrict my rights. Now, if they, in someone's private home, private business, they have the right to do that. But I have the right not to give them any business. I have a right not to visit in their home. If someone's scared of guns, well, good. Then I'll say howdy to you over the fence, but I ain't going to your house because I'm not going to give up any rights. If you want to be my friend, then you're going to have to get some courage. You have to trust me and realize that I'm held to defend your rights and not to do you damage and hurt you. But anyway, so we need to get these principles back into the minds and hearts of the people. But so anyway, back to the court. You got a judge. A judge is just supposed to be the referee to make sure that as these two, the prosecuting and defense attorney, go at it, one's trying to convict, the other's trying to defend. By the purpose of convicting is not to get a win. The purpose of convict if you have proof and evidence that is beyond a reasonable doubt, not because you've got a reputation you want to win. And our whole justice system is messed up because we've got lawyers all about making a name for winning cases. I want to be tough on crime. I don't want to be tough on crime. I just want to be just. And that's what every lawyer ought to be able to say. I just want to be just. I don't care about developing a reputation. Look, the law itself, we the people are ones that are supposed to be tough on crime, not lawyers. See, we're getting away where we're putting everything in the hands of the servants instead of we the people. We are the ones supposed to be tough on crime, not some lawyer, not some judge. Lawyers and judges are supposed to follow the law, gather evidence, and present that in a way that not that gets them a win, but that makes the truth come out and obvious, so that the real judges, who are the jurors, can see the evidence, hear the testimony, tell who's lying, who's not telling the truth, and the jurors make the judgment, not the judge. Everybody has a right to trial by jury. Why? We retain that power to judge ourselves. But now judges, like down in Florida, that wicked judge Margaret Casey Jones, is pushing to get Kent Hovind in prison. She is violating Kent Hovind's rights for the jury to be informed of their right to judge both the testimony and evidence and the law itself, because they used a law to throw him in prison the first time called structuring, which should not even be a law. Everybody has a right to withdraw their own money from their own account, even if they're crooks. Catch them at doing wrong, But don't make a law that, well, if you withdraw money less than $10,000 in order to avoid, look, I don't want the government to know about my personal finances. Why? Fourth Amendment, I have the right to be secure, or fifth, I have a right to be secure in my person and papers. That means my financial records. I have the right to be secure from the government in those things. Government has no business knowing what's going on in anybody's bank account unless they have a warrant supported by affidavit of probable cause that this person is doing something wrong, illegal with his bank account. Then if they have a warrant and that judge is honest, isn't just trying to make a name for himself, then they can check into that person because they have suspicion of that there's probable cause that he's doing wrong and it needs to be stopped before someone else is damaged. Other than that, they should leave our information alone. But we got a government that's gotten way out of control, and they're now repressing the people and oppressing us, regulating us to death. And I'm getting sick and tired of it. And I hate to see innocent people thrown in jail. The IRS went after a woman and accused her of structuring her deposits that she got. Her husband saved up money. He died, saved up a bunch of cash in a suitcase or some kind of box, and left her a note and explained it to her. So when he died, she found out about this, and she said, I've been saving up for this because I knew I'd probably die before you, and I want you cared for. I forget how much, something like $70,000 or $80,000 he'd saved up in cash for her. Well, she had to live, so she had to deposit it at the bank every once in a while. And so she deposited less than $10,000, so she wouldn't have to file any papers, so the bank wouldn't have to notify the IRS. And that's so they can catch money launderers. But this woman's not in money laundering. It's her money. It's her husband's money. He earned it. There's nothing illegal going on. But they went after her for structuring her deposits to avoid detection by the IRS. And they prosecuted that woman. She pled guilty because she was ignorant of the law. And now this man's last will and testament is not being fulfilled because we've got a government out of control that's violating the rights of the people. And I'm getting sick of it, and we need people to get sick of it, and we need to stand up and say, like the people said to Saul, Jonathan shall not die. God forbid. And it's time we, God's people, say, God forbid. But we got a nation that's so far from God. I don't know how we're going to get our country to say God forbid when they don't even believe in God. Got a bunch of atheists and evolutionists and people that deny the existence of God and a bunch of people that want to live the way they want to live. Oh, we got a sick country, folks, but we, the people, and me as a preacher and a bunch of preachers need to start protesting solemnly to the people and say, hey, better wake up or it's too late. And that's what I'm doing. That's the purpose of this message tonight. We need to get back to the realization that all political power is inerrant in the people. God gave us power. Let me close real quick with Romans chapter 13. I'm not going into detail here. I referenced it, and I just want to have it on the record here in this message. Romans chapter 13, verse 1, let every soul be subject unto the higher powers. And I just said, according to our form of government, and according to biblical principle, the highest power on earth as far as man is concerned is the people. And let every soul be subject unto the higher powers. In other words, look, the castle doctrine. A man is king in his castle. We don't have a king in America. We have millions of kings. Every man, every head of household is king of his household. And therefore, we're supposed to respect each other. We're all sovereigns respected to each other. Just like the United States is a sovereign nation, Mexico is a sovereign nation, Brazil is a sovereign nation, Spain is a sovereign nation, England is a sovereign nation. We're sovereigns amongst the nations. Nations are sovereign amongst each other, and we as individuals are sovereign amongst each other. And we're the higher power. We're higher than any government power. We're supposed to respect the higher powers. Notice, if your neighbor has unalienable rights from God, from His Creator, you better respect those rights, and he better respect yours. We're supposed to respect each other's rights. Don't violate each other's person. Don't violate each other's property. Don't violate each other's rights. Don't infringe on each other's rights. That's what this is talking about. But sometimes God sends judgment to a nation like He did Israel and put them under Roman rule. And God says, because these Romans or now, the Roman Empire is in control over you now because you violated my laws, and so I've judged you. Don't resist my judgment. And if I put them over you because you've turned away from me, and you don't do that. But as long as we have a constitutional republic where we, the people, grant powers of government, we're supposed to treat each other with respect and yield to each other's rights and respect our God-given rights. And that's what chapter 13 is about. We, the people, are the higher power. For there is no power but of God. And remember, God gave the earth to the children of men. The powers that be are ordained of God. Whosoever resisteth the power, resisteth the ordinance of God. If I resist your rights to your property, if I resist your rights to your personal health and safety, and I abuse you, I'm resisting the ordinance of God. And then, or if you do mine. And then it says, and they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. Why? You break in someone's house, they have the right to kill you. They have the right to shoot you. No questions asked. If you break, especially at night, and they don't see what you are or what you're up to, they have the right to protect their life and their property and just shoot you right then. It's called justifiable homicide. Kill a man in a just manner, for just reason. For rulers, by the way, we're all supposed to rule our own household. God made the husband to rule over the wife. We are the rulers. We, the people, are the rulers. For rulers are not a terror to good works. If I've got a good neighbor, I'm not going to be mean to him. He doesn't have to be terrorized by me. By the way, we are supposed to be terrorists, but not against good works, against evil. Evil people need to be afraid of good people who will not put up with evil. Okay? Rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Yeah, I'm afraid of my neighbor's power, so I'm going to respect his property. I'm going to respect his person. I'm going to respect his rights. Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. If I'm a good neighbor, my neighbor's going, boy, I got a good neighbor. He's going to tell other people, I got a good neighbor on that other side of me. Boy, he's never violated me or my property or my rights. He's a good man. For he shall have praise of the same. Let's see. Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the name. For he is the minister of God to thee for good. God will cause your neighbors to minister to you for good by telling other people what a good guy you are or a good woman you are. He's the minister of God for good to thee. And but if thou do that which is evil, be afraid. Why? For he beareth not the sword in vain. There's your Second Amendment right there. There's that principle of the right for people to protect themselves and to keep and bear arms for those who would violate their rights. So you better be afraid. Be afraid of your neighbor's gun if you're going to try to violate his property or his person or his rights. So we got it all backwards, folks. The government has come like the Satan, as an imposter, and has reversed the roles to where now, why don't you ask what you can do for your country? And people assume that means for the government. No. Do what you can do for your country. Notice, make sure your country stays on biblical principles, respecting the rights of the individual, as those rights are unalienable. They come from God. And the governments are established to protect and secure those rights and nothing else. Until we get back to that, we're going to have more injustices doing it. And I'm going to do all I can to help spread the word and make noise and shine the light on the corruption in that district court down there in Florida. And I'm not ashamed and embarrassed or afraid of saying Margaret Casey Rogers has done wrong, needs to be impeached, and go to prison. She's stolen 8 years of a man's life by using government against a good man. Scott Schneider, an IRS agent, deserves to go to prison. And by the way, 7 times they stole, and the Bible says, men don't despise a thief if he steals because he's hungry. Yet, even if he's hungry, he shall restore 7-fold. Well, 7 times 8. Yeah, all the people that put Ken Hovind in prison, they deserve to go to prison for 56 years. That's what they ought to get done. And the money they stole, they ought to restore that 7 times also. $400,000. At least that's one number, probably more than that total. What's 400,000 times 7? That's That's 2.8, yeah, depending on how much over 400,000. That's 2.8, that's almost $3 million. They owe that man. And I'm going to work to see that that gets done. I'm calling on God as witness that, God, you know what's going on, and maybe you've done nothing because we the people, just like God said, hey, if you get a king and you say, make us a king, like America said, oh, we want Obama to deliver us, like that one said, he'll pay my mortgage. We want government to do for us, become our nanny. And God says, when you get in trouble, if you do that, I will not hear you. But I'm telling you, I didn't do that. It's a previous generation. I've been awake most of my life. And I'm calling on God, say, God, hear me. I've been standing up for truth and standing up for you for years. Hear our prayers. Help us, Lord. We're standing up. And I'm asking for mercy for our forefathers. I'm asking God to have mercy on preachers who said, well, I'm just going to be about the work of God. Wait a minute. Delivering the oppressed is the work of God. We need to get busy about that. Well, I hope this gets out. I'm going to put it out as soon as I can. I hope we can stir up this nation to retake control of our nation. Get government restored back to the servants of the people and only exercising certain enumerated rights, none else. And by the way, I'm all for mercy. If Judge Rogers were to say, I've been wrong and apologize, even Kent Hovind I know would forgive her. And I would too. But she shows no sign of it now, and that's why she's going to feel my wrath and the wrath of many others. Just like a child, disobedient and rebellious, a child is going to feel the wrath of the parents until he gets right with them. And then, don't parents love their kids? Yes. Good masters love their servants. But you rebel against your master, and a good master can turn into a fearsome foe. And I'm serving notice, government better start fearing the people. When the people fear government, you have tyranny. When government fears the people, you have liberty. Let's proclaim liberty throughout all the land. God's a God of liberty. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. To thee we sing. By the way, it's not we're singing to the country. My country, 'tis of thee, Lord. It's a sweet land of liberty that you've given us. I sing of thee. To thee we sing. Long may our land be bright with freedom's holy, not unholy, holy light. Protect us by thy might, great God our King. Our Father's God, to thee, author of liberty, to thee we sing. Long may our land be bright with freedom's holy. I already did that. I guess got my verses mixed up, but will you join me in praying for America? Will you join me in standing against corruption? Let's pray. Father, I pray to bless the message. Stir up your people. Stir up your people to once again say, God forbid. We know you don't like what's being done in the name of government in our country. Many things. People have been killed. People without any guns, without any, not even trying to defend themselves. Homeless people being gunned down by policemen. Left and right, YouTube is full of it, and we're getting sick of it, Lord. Help us, Lord, to deliver the oppressed. That's what you call for. That's what you're all about, to deliver the oppressed and the helpless. We've got pretty helpless through our own wrongdoings and our own laziness. The Lord, have mercy on us and help us as we try to wake people up and restore justice and judgment and equity in the land once again. Truth has fallen in the street, can't get up. Help us to help her up and get liberty restored to this land. I pray, stir the hearts of preachers. Help them get over their fear of the unknown. Just start studying law. And when you know it, you'll have confidence and boldness. God, help our preachers and help Christians. Pacifistic, lazy, comfortable, living lives of convenience, submitting to this, submitting to that, and they've lost the sight of liberty and freedom. God, wake us up, I pray, in Jesus' name. And for His sake and the freedom to preach the gospel once again in America without regulation. That's our goal too. So, in your name we ask these things. Amen.